Hey guys, thanks for listening, and those of you who have read Misanthropology magazine, gratitude to you also. The October issue features an article about bad girls, both rebels and villains, female murderers and drug queenpins. Is queenpin a real word? Well, it should be. Last but definitely not least, my old friend Dawnarama graces the cover. She is none other than Toronto's premier queen of drag. In fact, she just might be the best in the world. RuPaul doesn't come up with such costumes and props. Dawnarama is a real innovator. As previously mentioned, the URL where you can find Misanthropology for download is www.misanthropology.store, misanthropology.store. It costs $5, so it's cheap, and because it's not printed, it's environmentally friendly. That's always good, right? Thank you for your patronage and enjoy the show. Welcome to Human Monsters. Robert Hansen was a hunter. He didn't just shoot rabbits and deer. He was more partial to bipeds, female bipeds, women, prostitutes, strippers. You see, just because a man is a Christian, an entrepreneur, married, and a family man doesn't mean he wasn't still capable of doing the dance of blood. And then it rained down on the world of the living. I didn't start to hate all women. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say I started to fall in love with every one of them. Every one of them became so precious to me because I wanted their friendship. I wanted them to like me so much. On top of the things that have happened, I'm not saying that I hate all women. I don't. Quite to the contrary. I guess in my own mind, what I'm classifying is a good woman, not a prostitute. I do everything in my power, any way, shape, or form, to do anything for her, and to see that no harm ever came to her. But I guess prostitutes are women I'm putting down as lower than myself. I don't know if I'm making sense or not. And you know, when this started to happen, when it happened the first time at Eklutna, I went home and was literally sick to my stomach. As a matter of fact, I was sick out there to my stomach. I can remember I sat and cried. I knew what I did was totally wrong. The innocent had stories to tell. So did Robert Hansen. I walked around to her side of the car and got her up and out of the seat. Then I took her back around the wing strut. She's still handcuffed behind, you know. Grabbed her by the arms and let her put her feet up on the step and walk herself on in, and then she sits down. Once she's inside the plane, again, she's pretty much confined, can't move. Then I have to go back out and get in my car and just move at 15 feet. I told her what I'm going to do, you know, that I'm going to be watching you, so please don't start getting out of the airplane, because I don't want to shoot a bunch of holes in the side of it. And she didn't even blink an eye. I got back in and started the airplane and taxied out. I got out there on the Knik River, you know. I landed there, and it was all fine. Right away I reached in and got her loose. It was awful hard for me in the first place to get her out of the airplane when she was still handcuffed. So I just reached in there and unhooked her handcuffs so she could grab the back of the seat and window supports in front and step on out. I grabbed her after she stepped down. The spot where you land out there is all gravel. Then there's some woods over here and a shack. It was a frame for a tent cabin. In other words, the walls are only about so high. And they have a meat shack out there, which is the same way. It's only half walls around, but then it has a roof on it and is screened in with a door on it. And there's a bar through the middle of it so they can hang moose meat and stuff in it so it can cool down without flies getting to it. Anyway, I got her out and got the handcuffs off and just took her by the arm. I said to her, "This is where we're going to spend the day." Just as we was walking in here, a damn plane comes down the river, going down around and in big circles over. He made it pass around, and I thought, oh shit, that son of a bitch is going to stop. I'm still holding her by the arm, and I say, "Don't say a goddamn word to him. If you raise hell and he starts for me, I'm going to have to shoot the son of a bitch. And if I've got to shoot him, I'm going to shoot you. And you don't want that, do you?" "Oh, no, 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 no." I said, "All right, let's go in here." And we went to the meat shack. Next to the screen door, there was a nail that was bent over to hold the door shut. I twisted that down, got her inside, and I backed her up against an iron pipe running across the top of it, where they hang meat from. I said, "Hey, I'm going to make sure the guy don't land, or if he does land, I'm going to make sure he don't come up here. You stay here and keep your mouth shut, and we're going to have no problems whatsoever." So I handcuffed her hands behind her, around that post, and as I walked back out to my airplane, this guy made one more pass. They were quite big turns, you know. And as he was coming around one more time, he dipped his wings at me, and I just waved to him. He waved a couple more times and leveled off and went back down the river. That scared me a little bit there. But I had the 223 my airplane, and I carried that back and I leaned that against the shack. Then I went back into her in there and got her freed. Up until that time, when that guy first flew over, everything was just right. As a matter of fact, when the plane came over the first time, I said, "There comes a plane. Let's get out of sight." And boy, you know, she just right away got behind some bushes and done everything she could to keep out of sight. But the problem was, I think, maybe I shouldn't have called it a meat shack to her. Maybe that's what got her thinking. I thought about it a lot of times, but I don't know the answer. All I know is, when I started walking out of there with her, she started screaming, "You're going to kill me, aren't you? You're going to kill me." I said, "No, I ain't going to kill you. The problem is over with. The guy is gone." "Oh, no, 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 you're going to kill me." She slapped me and started running. I caught up to her and stopped her. I said, "Now look, it's over. There is no problem. The guy is gone." But she had got hysterical, and I couldn't get her calmed down. The more I tried to talk to her, and maybe it was because I was getting excited, the more hysterical she got, and she broke away from me again and started to run. I took a couple steps back and grabbed the rifle. Then I ran and caught her again, and I said, "Now look, don't make a bad thing worse. Don't. Stop. It's okay." But then I had a gun in my hand, and she said, "You're going to kill me right now." Then things just went completely bad again. If that son of a bitch hadn't circled in there, it would never have happened. Because as a matter of fact, I'd never had one that tried as hard to keep it under wraps, you know? But I think when she was by herself in the meat shack, she just... confined there, that's when things went bad. 1971, Robert Hansen underwent an extensive psychiatric evaluation before he was sentenced for the charge of assault with a dangerous weapon. The following is derived from the transcript of an exchange between Judge James M. Fitzgerald and Robert Hansen. Fitzgerald: Mr. Hansen, is there anything you wish to tell me before I pass sentence, judgment, or make a sentence this afternoon, either tending to show why I should not now do so, or otherwise on your behalf? Hansen: No, Your Honor. Fitzgerald: I find you guilty of the crime of assault with a dangerous weapon in accordance with your plea. These are the factors I take into consideration. You've been once convicted of the offense of arson. I'm told it was 10 years ago. From all reports I have here, apparently you are able to get along well and are able to associate with others, who have come here to testify their high regard for you. I'm told that you're a capable and willing worker. I believe you have a serious mental illness, and one which makes you, under certain circumstances, extremely dangerous to others in the community. I think this condition requires psychiatric therapy, and I'm told by the doctor that it's the condition which he has apparently diagnosed, or your condition is one that may be treatable. I believe that this offense was committed, as the doctor tells us, during a period of dissociation, which he states is a condition arising from your mental condition. I'm going to sentence you to 5 years in prison. But I'm going to make some other conditions because I think that they are appropriate. First of all, I don't know how long the psychotherapy is going to take place, but it must be given to you because if it's not given to you, in my opinion, you'll be released from the penitentiary, and perhaps in an even more dangerous condition. I'm going to make you eligible for parole at the discretion of the parole board. Because if the progress in treatment is satisfactory, or at a later point the psychiatrist can give a reasonable assurance that you are no longer a danger at large in the community, I think you should be released. And I want to make it possible for the parole board to do this. I think that you must have psychotherapy or you must have psychiatric treatment, and I strongly recommend it. And I recommend as well that you be allowed a release to follow your employment or your work, because I'm told that you are a good worker. And I believe that you're not a danger to the community as long as you're subject to close supervision. And so long as that supervision is afforded you, I think that the danger to the community and to the others in the community will be minimized. In 1976, Hansen was charged for committing larceny in a building. The condition of his mental health was cited once again as a seminal cause of his criminal behavior. Superior Court Judge James K. Singleton delivered the following pronouncement about Hansen's capacity for legal transgression. Mr. Hansen is dangerous. I think Dr. McManaman made that clear, and that during the manic phase of his condition, he is capable of committing crimes, of acting out. His behavior, whatever his capacity to control it, is largely uncontrolled. Dr. McManaman indicates that the counseling and the lithium treatment would not be curative, but would only suppress the symptoms. In other words, would suppress the illness, but would not cure it. So, if we assume that the condition is ongoing, then we can assume that Mr. Hansen presents a real danger to the community. Not only a danger of committing larcenies, but of committing the other kinds of crimes that he previously has committed. So he does present a substantial danger, and there is a substantial incentive to incarcerate him in order to isolate him and preclude criminal activity during the period of isolation. Normally, Hansen didn't make any statements on his behalf in court, aside from entering pleas. However, this was an occasion when a judge gave him the opportunity, and he took advantage of it. Your Honor, there is no doubt I committed the crime, but I would like you to consider my wife and 2 small children. I am the sole supporter of my family. I have a home. I own my own home, but now I will lose it. Since seeing Dr. McManman, there has been no problem. I'm now in the lithium program, and I'm able to talk without stuttering. Your Honor, there will be no future problems. I have had enough problems. They have been hard on my family. I have been seeing Dr. Parker and talked to him regarding my problem. It was a sex-related problem, but now that's cleared up. For the first time, I can handle my problem now. Now, I don't feel I have to take something out of a store. I am ashamed of being here. I'm just asking for restrictions to help me keep things right. This wasn't sufficient in the eyes of Judge Singleton. Well, just as your attorney has made a very eloquent presentation on your behalf, you also have spoken eloquently on your own behalf. And I can say without hesitation that were this the first offense, there would be no question but that I would grant you probation for the reasons that you've outlined. However, this is not a first offense. This is not the first time, Mr. Hansen, that you have appeared before a judge. This is not the first time that you have had the opportunity to say to a judge, as you have said to me, that this is the last time I will be before a judge. It will therefore be the sentence of this court that you be sentenced to a period of incarceration of 5 years. During that time, you should receive psychiatric treatment, and under no circumstances should you be admitted to parole without first having established for you a program of psychiatric counseling and therapy to ease your transition into the community. Hansen appealed to the Supreme Court, with the argument being that his sentence was too severe for a non-serious property crime. The following is the text from the Supreme Court's decision. Hansen's prior convictions were 5 and 15 years before the current offense. During that time, Hansen has otherwise conducted his life in a normal and respectable manner. He has maintained steady employment, has been a good provider for his family, and has earned the reputation of a hard worker and a respectable member of the community. It is quite possible that the instant offense and the earlier convictions stemmed as much from psychological aberration as from a general criminal propensity. We agree that Hansen's prior record did compel some term of incarceration rather than straight probation. However, the particulars of this case, the clearly diagnosed mental illness, Hansen's amenability to treatment, the linkage of the mental illness to past antisocial behavior, the definite, prescribed course of treatment to mitigate the possibility of future criminal behavior, the stable home and work environment, and the factor that the monetary value of the property stolen was relatively low, lead us to conclude that the court below was clearly mistaken in imposing a 5-year sentence. Hansen has already served a year in prison. We believe his sentence should now be revised to provide for imprisonment for the period of time he has served, but that he be placed upon probation for the remainder of his term. Robert Hansen was a thief, as he put it. I have a thing about taking things, 'cause I just loved to see if I could get by with it. My gosh, I damn near ejaculate in my pants if I could walk into a store and take something and get out the dang door with it and not pay for it. As time would tell, Robert Hansen didn't just steal inanimate objects. June 13th, 1983, Anchorage, Alaska. 17-year-old Kitty Larson was a prostitute working the corner of 5th and Denali in Anchorage, Alaska. Her birth name was Victoria Matthew. She was picked up by John and taken to his house. Before they arrived at his place, She had handcuffs on her wrists. Upon their arrival, he brought her down to the basement and raped her. Some of her clients had strange requests, but his proclivities were unlike any other. He said to her, "Tell me you want it." She started to cry. He had offered her $200 for a blowjob, which was far more than the asking price. Now she knew what that money was paying for. He said, "Tell me you want it, baby." She didn't parrot what he told her to say. She didn't have much time. Premature ejaculation won the race. She was now focused on how she could escape from that place. It occurred to her that she could escape through a window. She told the John she needed to go to the bathroom, and it was urgent. He gave her permission, but placed a thick nylon rope around her neck. He restrained her with the rope as a leash. He held it tightly until she was finished urinating. When she felt the rope slacken, she ran to the bathroom's window. It was nailed shut. She heard a sound of chains being dragged across the floor in the den. She became convinced he was going to kill her. She didn't want to find out what he had in store for her next. She decided there was no way he was going to lock her in the bathroom. She kicked the door open. She was naked and standing in the door jamb. He looked over at her and said, "Go back in." Kitty had always been recalcitrant. She said no. He said, "I said, go back in." This failed to motivate her. He grabbed her and chained her to a wooden post that was positioned in the middle of the den. He wrapped the chain around her neck with 4 revolutions. He wore his enjoyment on his face. He said, "If you cooperate, I won't hurt you." He stood nose to her. His face was a moonscape of acne scars and warts. He had slick hair and horn-rimmed glasses. His unassuming appearance belied his hidden agenda, which was why she got into his car that night. He grabbed an Afghan. He wrapped it around her. He said, "I'm tired. I haven't slept in a long time. I'm going to go to sleep on the couch. And don't wake me up, or you'll make me mad, and you don't want to see me mad." He was talking like the Incredible Hulk as an awkward middle schooler. He held a gun in his hand, so Kitty didn't put up a fuss. He turned on the television. He said, "Here, you can watch TV while I sleep." A classic pre-mortem life review retained her attention more than anything on television. Whether he was just going to kill her or torture her, there was no indication of what he would ultimately decide on. She feared that she would never see her parents and other loved ones again. She noticed that her captor had a thing for hunting. There was a bearskin rug on the floor. There was a large pile of wolf hides in a corner. There were heads of fallen caribou and goats on the wall. Also featured were stuffed ducks and other game birds. There was even a stuffed and mounted fish on a coffee table. She also happened to notice a rack of women's clothes. Time would tell if those were hunting trophies in their own right. As Kitty devised new ways to escape, the man suddenly woke and ran up to her. She decided to try the tack of eliciting mercy. That is, if he was capable of feeling such a thing. She said, "All I want is to go home to my mom. I won't tell nobody. Just let me go home." "Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay. I'm not going to hurt you." I hope not." "Hey, I've brought 7 other girls here. Usually I keep them a week, but I really like you, so I'm going to treat you special." "Why do you do this?" "I used to work on the North Slope, and I'd come down to Anchorage and spend $200 for a girl and go to a room for 10 or 15 minutes. Well, I'm going to get my money's worth now. I'm going to bring him to my house and do what I please. But I like you so good. I'm going to take you to my cabin and make love to you one more time. And then I'll have you back here around 11 o'clock in the morning. Okay, good, that's fine. And even if you do tell on me, well, I'll have an alibi. My friends will say I went to the lake with them. He unlocked the padlock that bound the chains together. Announcing the rest of his agenda, he said, I got a plane over at Merrill Field. I'm going to fly you to my cabin. She hoped that once outside, she could make a getaway. It would have been difficult to run in high heels, but this was an emergency, so comfort was not priority one. The opportunity was not availed to her. He brought her to his garage from inside. He instructed her to lie on the floor of the back seat. He placed a green army blanket on her. He drove them through the streets of downtown Anchorage. As they commuted, Kitty realized the airfield was just down the street from the Big Timber Motel, where she often stayed. She had friends there who would protect her. After arriving at the airfield, the man parked near his plane. He went to the back of the car and retrieved some items from the trunk. He transferred several items to the plane. Knowing he was distracted by this task, she sprang out of the car and ran. She was running barefoot on gravel while wearing handcuffs. Tears blew backwards toward her temples. When she hazarded a look backwards, she saw that he was chasing her. He said, I'm going to get you. Her legs took her to a used car dealership. She couldn't hide behind a car because he was close enough to see the spot she would have chosen. She ran out to the road to summon a truck. The driver did not stop at first. After she began to scream, the driver could see that she was in distress and stopped. She got into the truck. The driver said, Are you all right? No, he's going to kill me. Who's going to kill you? She didn't answer, since she didn't know the man's name. Take me to the Big Timber Motel. The driver said, I think we ought to go to the police station. That guy's got a gun. No, just stop. He said, No way. The trucker kept driving. Kitty said, Then just stop right here. Just stop and let me out, man. Just stop, man. The truck stopped at the Mush Inn Motel, which was just down the street from the Big Timber. She asked the clerk at the front desk to call a friend, who was her pimp, and he showed up in a taxi minutes later. The trucker drove to a precinct of the Anchorage Police Department and reported the incident. Meanwhile, back at Big Timber, Kitty was inconsolable. Her pimp tried without success to calm her down. He had even less success removing the handcuffs. He was getting impatient with her. He said, Stop it, please. Just stop crying, please. He was about as tender as pimps get, but it wasn't nearly enough after her brush with death. Finally, whimpering, she said, Okay. She was still crying and would continue to do so for hours. He grabbed her and slapped her. That classic move from the pimp playbook didn't yield the desired results. Out of patience now, he ran down the hall to the room occupied by his brother. He came back holding a gun. He said, I'm going to kill this motherfucker. Kitty was left in handcuffs when her pimp departed for the airfield. Anchorage police officer Greg Baker questioned Kitty Larson at the Big Timber. She was terrified that her assailant would track her down and kill her. She said, I really want to help, but am I going to get in any trouble? I mean, because I'm a prostitute? He said, I don't think so. He wanted Kitty Larson to be involved in the investigation as a witness because there had recently been a rash of exotic dancers disappearing and or being found dead. Kitty understood how valuable her role in the investigation would be. If I don't help, I'm afraid he's going to hurt somebody else. He's killed other women. I just don't know what I should do. Kitty led the way as Officer Baker drove them to the southwest corner of Merrill Field. She noted that the blue and white Super Cub airplane with tail number N3089Z was the perpetrator's aircraft. They were soon approached by the airfield's security guard, Brian Demers. He told Officer Baker that he recalled seeing a white male wearing a green coat and cap running from the woods to a green vehicle. He even remembered the license plate number, BJZ775. Demers mentioned that when the man saw him, he slowed down to a steady gait, got in the car, and drove away. They checked with the flight tower. The plane was registered to one Robert C. Hansen. His car was registered to Robert C. Hansen, and they got his home address, 7223 Old Harbor Road. Some officers were dispatched to the house on Old Harbor Road. Meanwhile, Kitty was taken to Humana Hospital to undergo a rape kit examination. She was menstruating at the time, and because there was a tampon in her vagina, the doctors found traces of sperm. Robert Hansen pulled up at his house minutes after the police. After he was informed of the allegations being made against him, he agreed to go to the station for questioning. At the precinct, Hansen was advised of his Miranda rights. He waived his right to have an attorney present. When investigator Will Dennis told Hansen that he was suspected of raping a prostitute, Hansen joked about it, saying, "You can't rape a prostitute, can you? In this state, you can." "Well, I didn't pick up any woman or prostitute last night." "Can you prove that?" "Yes, I can. From 5 p.m. until 11:30 p.m. last night, I was at the home of John Summerall, fixing an airplane seat. You can ask him. And then, from there, I went to John Henning's house. I stayed there until about 5 o'clock this morning, talking about fishing. You can call him too. After that, I went to Merrill Field and put the seat in my airplane. From there, I went straight home. When I got there, I saw the police officers, who asked me to come to the station. Right now, what I want from you, Mr. Hansen, is permission to search your residence and your plane." Hansen signed waivers for both searches. Detective Dennis and Officer Baker went to Hansen's home. When they searched his car, they found several center-fire rifle cartridges, estimated to be .36 or .223 caliber. On the dash, there was a rolled-up ace bandage. A pair of rubber surgical gloves had been placed on the back window shelf. When they searched the garage, they found numerous animal traps with chains attached. They did not see any other ropes, chains, or towels in the garage. On a workbench, there were several green wool army blankets. There was a large cache of equipment for hand-loading firearm ammunition. In the southern end of the basement, they found several rifles, shotguns, and pistols. Nothing significant to the allegations was found on the plane. The next day, Kitty Larson was shown a photographic lineup of unidentified male suspects. She immediately identified Robert Hansen as her attacker. This was where the investigation hit a snag. Hansen's alibis held up. The people he said he was with when the alleged rape took place vouched for him. It didn't help Kitty Larson's case that Robert Hansen was an upstanding member of the community. He was a successful entrepreneur who owned a popular bakery. He owned his home, several cars, and the airplane. He was a husband and father to 2 children. Pitting the word of a prostitute against that of Robert Hansen meant the plaintiff's attorney had their work cut out for them. Larson was not treated well at the police station. She was accused of lying. They pressured her to take a polygraph test. The case was put to sleep and filed away. However, APD investigator Maxine Farrell briefed Alaskan state troopers about the case. September 2nd, 1983. A body was found by the Knik River. It was found in a spot where the body of victim Sherry Morrow was found the previous September. The latest victim's body presented at a point of advanced decomposition. A half-assed attempt at burial was made, leaving her remains in a shallow grave. She was fully clothed, though her sweater and bra had been cut in half. No identification documents could be found on the body. The body was so thoroughly decomposed that fingerprints could not be taken. The mandible was still intact, so dental records could be consulted, though using them can take a long time when you have no identity to start with. A .223 caliber shell casing was found nearby. It was an identical make to that of the shell found close to Sherry Morrow's grave. The state troopers sent them to the FBI to run ballistics and ascertain if they were discharged from the same rifle. The Jane Doe's autopsy was conducted the next day. She was found to be in her late 20s or early 30s. She was killed with one shot to the sternum. The bullet cut through her heart. State Trooper Sergeant Glenn Floty was assigned to the case of the missing women in the Anchorage area. This is a list of the missing victims he was investigating. 30-year-old Paula Golding, reported missing April 1983. 23-year-old Kathy Disher, disappeared late 1982. 20-year-old Delyn Fry, reported missing September 1983, but could have disappeared in March. 24-year-old Karen Baumsgaard of Portland, Oregon. 23-year-old Sue Luna of Washington State. 21-year-old Tamara Peterson of Washington State. 22-year-old Teresa Watson of Sacramento, California. 26-year-old Angela Federn of Seattle, Washington. The common denominators stood between 5'4" and 5'7", weighed from 120 to 125 pounds, slim, busty, all had a history of working as exotic dancers, all had a history of working as prostitutes. Floty took a look at Kitty Larson's report, time to find out what Robert Hansen was up to. Major Walter Gilmore had some information he felt would be relevant to the case. It concerned a woman named Robin Patterson. She described an encounter she had with the suspect. Her description of him was consistent with Kitty Larson's. His face was a mess due to acne scars. He abducted her at gunpoint from the parking lot of a cafe that was frequented by street people. He tied her hands together with leather shoelaces. He took her to a remote location. He asked her if she would let him tear her bra off. Not wanting to incur his wrath, she undressed upon his instruction. The idea was that she couldn't escape if she were clad only in her undergarments. They drove into a district known as the Kenai. He checked them into a motel where they had sex. His face wasn't the only part of his anatomy she found memorable. She said his penis was shaped funny, like it was deformed or something. It was short, but very large around. He vowed that he would take her back to Anchorage, but he had other plans. He drove them deeper into the woods. He stopped his large Pontiac by the side of a steep embankment that ran so far down they couldn't see the end. As Robin contemplated the abyss in front of her, she thought, "Nobody will even find me. I'll roll right off the face of the earth." She asked him why he stopped. He appeared to be as tightly wound as she was when he said, I saw something in the trees." He turned back to her and said, "I can't take you back to town. Not anymore. You'll tell on me, or go to the police." Robin said, "I won't tell anyone. Honest, I hate cops. They're last people on earth I'd tell anything." As far as I'm concerned, none of this even happened. If anybody asks, I've never seen you before. There's no friendship between cops and criminals, and speaking his language in this regard worked the miracle she had in mind. He untied her and drove her back to Anchorage. When he dropped her off, he said, I wish we could have met under different circumstances. When Robin identified Robert Hansen from a selection of mugshots, she said, I may be doing something that some people don't think is totally acceptable, and it may not be, but that isn't why I'm here. I'm here because that guy, that Bob Hansen guy, is probably a premeditated, cold-blooded killer. And he has killed before. He said he killed before, and everything else he said was absolutely true. Everything he said he would do to me came true. Everything he said he would do, he did. Every threat he made. I believed. And he says he's killed people. I believe he's killed people, and if you've got a young girl who was killed around the same time and in the same area, then I believe it was Hansen who killed her, and I believe he'll kill me too. Despite her sincerity, Hansen spent the next year as a prime suspect, but never under arrest. September 14th, 1983. Captain Ron Rice of the Anchorage Police Department related a story about Robert Hansen. He said to Walter Gilmore, Yeah, I remember Bob Hansen. He's a mad dog. He's so dangerous, he should be put away forever. So do you remember the case? What happened, anyway? He followed some secretary home and got into her house by making up some story about how he needed to use her phone. He left, but a half hour later, he walked right in the house, didn't bother to knock or anything, and asked her for a date. She flat-ass turned him down. About a week later, he came back with a gun and tried to kidnap her at gunpoint. She screamed, he ran, and we caught him. And that was the assault charge? Yeah, listen, Walt, I was there when we brought him in on that charge. Here was a guy who had hidden a gun under the wheel well of a car. And his statement was something to the effect that he had been out bow hunting. What a dumb dipshit. Let me tell you something else. I went to Hansen's house to arrest him. On that deal with Robin Patterson, I saw a roll of wire in his basement. It looked just like the wire used to bind Melanie Michaels' wrists. Why didn't you seize it? It was Trooper Hughes's case, Major, and he wouldn't let me. I guess other things seemed more important at the time. You remember anything else? When Robin Patterson was shown the lineup photos, she went straight to the guy. And when Hughes took her back over the kidnap route, she remembered everything. I mean, everything. So you really think he was a killer way back then, huh? You have to remember, Walt, that this guy threatened Robin's life and the life of her kid. When Robin Patterson said she believed he'd kill her, I knew she wasn't making it up. No way was she making it up. And I'll tell you one goddamn thing, Walt. We taught him to kill. When we didn't put him away for a long time, we taught him to kill. We not only taught him to kill, we taught him who to kill. Way back in 72. We told him it's all right to kill whores, because nobody gives a shit about whores. I told the DA at the time that we should go balls to the wall on the Robin Patterson thing. It was a strong case. She was an excellent witness, and we put together a pretty good list of witnesses who'd seen them. We had people all the way down the Kenai who'd seen them. You'll remember that I went to my boss, telling him that we should go for it. I even went to you, and ended up writing a report on the damn case, trying to get people to listen. The DA just gave me the cold shoulder. He was more interested in making deals with Hansen's attorney. So what else is new? It's a little club down there. It didn't help that police didn't take prostitutes seriously. Fairbanks Sergeant Sam Barnard surfaced with a story of his own about a crime of violence against women with which Hansen was associated. He pulled a gun out and drove her to Chugach State Park. There he raped her, performed cunnilingus on her, and forced her to perform oral sex on him. He said, "If you don't do what I say, I'll kill you." He tied her wrists. He told her he worked on the pipeline and that he had been raping women in the Anchorage area. He claimed to have a friend who was also raping women in that area. Hansen told her, "You won't be a good witness against me anyway, because you're a nude dancer and a prostitute." This information was not given to the police directly. The girl used an intermediary of the Anchorage Rape and Assault Center. She was afraid that if she disclosed her identity, Hansen would kill her. Because of her refusal to get directly involved with the investigation as a witness, Hansen was not charged with this crime. Hansen was interviewed, and naturally, he claimed to be baffled by the allegations. Because he was sentenced to 5 years in prison on March 24th, 1972, for assault with a dangerous weapon, they at least had a noted history of violence on record. Hansen was asked about what happened with another victim, that being Sherry Morrow, a topless dancer that was found with an ace bandage wrapped around her head. She was buried in a shallow grave. It appeared she was dispatched execution style. Her gold arrowhead pendant was found at his house. When asked how the incident came about, he said he picked her up at a bar where she had been working as a topless dancer. There again, like so many others before her, if things hadn't gone wrong, it would never have happened. A combination of a few things. My stupidity, for one. I guess I was deceived too much in going out there. I got too relaxed. It's quite a drive out there. Hansen didn't use his plane with that date. He drove her in his car and showed her his gun and told her he would bring her back that evening if everything went according to plan. He intended to take her to a lean-to at a remote location along the Knik River. The only route at one point was a beaten path of a road, which devolved into a patchwork of holes and natural detritus. Hansen described what happened next. The only thing is, I got stuck before I got there, and then all of a sudden she turned around, trying to scratch me in the eyes and fight and so forth, and it just went from bad to worse. She fought with me, and she started running, and I caught her again, and I can't even remember how it happened. But somehow or other, I know I was sitting on my ass, and she was just standing there screaming at me. And I just pointed my gun up towards her and pulled the trigger. I did not want her to see where she was going, and so forth. I had a bandage around her head, an ace bandage, so she couldn't see, and she was tied. I can't remember when I got out of the car. I know when it was all over. I had bruises on my legs. One cut, I think, was from her kicking me. Whether she had her hands tied or not, I can't tell you for sure. I know there's been at least 3 times I've taken some piece of jewelry from someone I've brought back for momentum. I took something off her. Don't ask me why I took that, or why I took something from any one of them. I suppose I could have maybe have grabbed her and pulled her someplace. As a matter of fact, I can even remember dropping the weapon there, and I ran back to the car, and there in the truck was that little shovel. Those little shovels, they're not a straight shovel. You can turn the handle so it goes down and tighten it up so you can dig like a hoe. You know, I was there digging like a mad fool, looking, hoping that there was nobody coming. And I just got her in below the ground and scooped stuff back on top of her and left. I never went back again. Hansen related how he engaged in sex acts with Sherry Morrow, which consisted of oral sex and the fondling of her breasts. Following this, she asked if she could relieve herself. Permission was granted. He decided to do the same. He put his gun on the roof of his car and urinated. He suddenly heard the sound of footsteps in gravel. When he turned, he saw she was reaching for the gun. He lunged at her and tried to twist it out of her hand. He grabbed the gun's barrel and slammed it on the car's hood. The gun fell away. He pushed her to the car's grill. She retaliated, poking her fingers in his eyes. Hansen expounded on this incident some more. I just picked up the gun and shot her. I carried her down the railroad tracks and she went in the river. His story about what he did to a victim known as Eklutna Annie. This time it didn't go right. And the sad part about it, I found myself after a period of time back uptown looking again. Like a moth that's drawn to a fire. I'm back again. It scared me, I got to thinking, oh my God, this can't go on anymore. What if it goes wrong again? I need help. God, I've wanted help so damn much in my life, but who do I go to for help? I sure in hell can't go to somebody and tell them I killed somebody. I don't want to spend the rest of my life in jail any more than anybody else. I don't want to go back to jail again. I've been there. And who do I talk to? Well, there's an old saying, you can go talk to a minister and it's supposed to stay between him and... Gentlemen, I don't know how many churches in this town. I've walked around the block till I damn near wore out the damn sidewalk. Twice I went as far, I don't know why I picked their church, as that big church right downtown here. I guess because it was the biggest one. And I thought, my God, there's got to be somebody here who can help. I went as far as walking in, and it's a Catholic church. I'm not a Catholic, but they got confession. I see all the time in the movies and everything where the guy don't even look at you. That was the guy I was going to talk to, but I got as far twice, even up the goddamn steps, and turned around. No, Bob, you can't do this now. Goddamn now, you can't talk to him. You can't go talk to a doctor. Boy, a psychiatrist was about the first no-no on the damn block. And how the hell do I talk to a friend about something like this? I can't talk to my wife about it. The one person I should be able to sit down and discuss anything with. But how in the hell do you tell your wife that you're going out, having sex fantasies, and having sex with another woman, and worse than anything else, you killed one of them? Where in the hell do I go, The judge in his wisdom stated when I first got in trouble that I was supposed to have psychiatric help the first time back there. Boy, I would have. I knew I had a problem way back then, and doggone, way back in Iowa, the judge said that I was supposed to have some help. And of course that never happened. That was a farce. The only one I ever talked to was before I got sentenced, not after. The only thing that happened was that I was sitting there knowing it's rough, gentlemen, to sit so close to somebody that can help you, but knowing that you can't ask for help, because if you ask for the help, God damn it, you're going to get in more trouble. This would be aside from this here, but in the future, to keep someone else from sitting where I'm sitting right now, and what happened, have in mind, God damn it, leave the doctors alone. Really, let them help somebody. Don't put restrictions on them. If I had had help back then, the first time, I probably wouldn't be here, and there would probably be some people alive today. Now, I'm not putting all the blame on... I'm putting the blame on me, because I'm the one that went and done it. Hansen told investigators that when he approached these women, he would tell them he was from out of town. He would arrange to meet them in a public place. There was a woman who came to me known as the Bear Lady. Her legal name was Joanne Messina. She was indigent, living in a tent on a campground and seeking work. They met on the docks in Seward. He divulged what happened next. While I was sitting there talking, she just came right out and said, I haven't even got money to get back. I'm up here camped. I haven't got a job. We could have a real nice time if you have any money. And it just went from day to night. She was a prostitute, or she propositioned me anyway. I just said, gee whiz, I got my pickup and camper out here. Let's go. Hansen parked his camper at a remote location. They walked down to a river. She propositioned him again. It didn't get the reaction she expected. Hansen flew into a rage and stomped back to his camper. She followed him back. He began to drive away before she could get completely situated in the passenger seat. She became angry at him, accusing him of taking her there under false pretenses. She started to scream at him. Hansen on what happened next. So I stopped the pickup and I said, okay, come out, let's get in back then. We got in back and I told her, hey now, you fucking bitch, this is as far as it's going, as far as the goddamn money goes. Here, this is all you're worth. And I think it was like something like $5 or something like that. I fucking threw in her face. Plus I said, that's all you're going to get. And if you don't like it, that's too damn bad. I told her she was a goddamn whore. That started the fight. They ended up outside the camper and, as Hansen put it, that was it. Hansen was asked if he got the same rush from killing the women that he did from stealing. Well, there was a feeling when things were going right. There was a great sexual surge, but not the same feeling as when I was stealing something out of a store. He was asked about what he did to Paula Golding. He described a speech he would give to the women. I pull out a gun. I think the standard speech was, look, you're a professional. You don't get excited. You know there is some risk to what you've been doing. If you do exactly what I tell you, you're not going to get hurt. You're just going to count this off as a bad experience and be a little bit more careful next time who you're going to proposition or go out with, you know? I tried to act as tough as I could to get them as scared as possible. Give that right away, even before I started talking at all. Reach over, you know, and hold that head back and put a gun in her face and get them to feel helpless, scared, right there. Then tell them to turn around and face the seat on their knees on the floorboard. That way, they were down. They wouldn't start anything there. I'm sure. Maybe it's not the same procedure for you. You always try to get control of the situation. So some things don't start going bad. He was asked how he kept the women under control in the plane. He said he handcuffed them. He said he didn't care if they screamed. He said that he considered winter to be an inopportune time to commit the murders. He referred to it as a summertime project. February 27th, 1984. Robert Hansen appeared in court. District Attorney Vic Krum notified the judge that Hansen confessed to committing the murders. Assistant District Attorney Frank Rothschild made the following pronouncement about Robert Hansen. Your Honor, before you sits a monster, an extreme aberration of a human being, a man who has walked among us for 17 years, serving us donuts, Danish, and hot coffee, all with a pleasant smile. Mellow, mild-mannered, bespectacled, Bob the baker. A family man. A man so cunning, so clever, that his friends and acquaintances are in shock at what he now admits to before this court. Not even his wife of nearly 20 years had any idea of his dark, evil side. He is a man who has manipulated his family, his friends, countless women, the police, and the courts of our state for the many years he has been here. He is, to be blunt, the most prolific mass murderer in modern Alaska history. A man who purposely, coldly plotted and planned the kidnap, the terrorizing, and the rape of scores of women who lived here in Anchorage, who admits to murdering 17 women, 17 young, helpless, frightened women, and then burying them in our wilderness. His crimes numb the mind. Hearing him tell of his crimes, which we did last week for 10 to 12 hours, sapped the body of energy. It sapped the spirit. But the story must be told, for our community wants to know, how is it that this man got away with these crimes all these years? And how is it that we finally caught him? His manipulations are immense. And while he doesn't admit it, it's always from reading through and looking at where things started and where the women ended up. He hunted them down, Judge. He let them run a little bit, and then he enjoyed a little hunt, just like with his big game animals. He toyed with them. He wanted to scare them. He got a charge out of all of this. They weren't shot right where it all started. He let them run. He grabbed them and they'd claw a little bit, and he'd let them run a little more and played with them. He doesn't look big and strong, but he is. One time he called this his summertime project. What a lovely word for his handiwork. A summertime project. And he did admit that none of them went willingly. Even when he went through the map and talked about where all these women were and pointed out to us where they were, it was cold. He said, well, there's one here, and there's one there, and you'll find one next to this tree, and one under that road. They weren't human beings to him. He is a compulsive liar. He gives us what he knows he had to give us, and no more. That's a fiction. His family was a prop so he could hide behind decency, to show, I'm a family man. And he's a baker, and he makes money, and it's all part of the game. So we have to ask ourselves, can he be rehabilitated? We know that's a joke. It's too late. Will this deter others? People like this aren't going to get deterred. Not that have the kind of problems this man has. We can sure isolate him, and we can sure tell all the people in our community and reaffirm their value system that this man will never see the light of day again. We can't put him to death, but truly that would be too easy for this man, Your Honor. It's really what he'd prefer at this point. It's better that we lock him up and make him live with this for each breath that he takes of prison air that he'll be breathing for the rest of his life. He asked that we recommend, and we strongly recommend, that he be sent to the federal prison system. We asked the court to make that recommendation. He's asked for psychiatric counseling. We agree, if for no other reason than to try to make him aware of what a monster he is. For these people that he has slain, for those lucky enough to have survived. Your Honor, we ask that you rid us of this beastly man forever. Judge Ralph Moody weighed in. It's hard to believe that humanity produces and sustains people who have the ability and the propensities to commit such enormous, such beastly, such indescribable crimes. There are no words which can adequately describe him. What we have seen here today, and what the defendant has admitted to, in many respects, is a condemnation of society as a whole. We have let down not only the victims, but many of our compatriots here in court, here in Alaska. The court system has failed. Knowing that he was a problem, probation officers, police officers, members of society themselves who would not come forward, I can't think of a bigger indictment of society than this. And we might as well face the music and resolve now and forevermore that we're not going to allow people like this to remain on the streets. If there ever was a case in which a man or defendant needed to be surveillanced for the rest of his life, It is this gentleman here, and it's been known for many years. But what did we do? We say he paid his debt to society when we give him sentencing. Depend on psychiatrists. And here again, we've got doctors and psychiatrists are in this indictment too, as well as all of you know. I'm sure we're involved. I'm a judge and a lawyer, and so I place myself in the collective pot for criticism. Society had better take another look when you've got people like this. And there should be laws which allow you to supervise and keep some kind of control over people like this, the rest of their lives, if it's necessary. Here we've turned a person loose several times, knowing that he had the propensity for what he did. There's absolutely no excuse for it. There's no justification in any sense for the cruelty he's shown. In these cases, he took people who could least protect themselves, people from the standpoint of the lower point of society, but from the standpoint of the man, were angels compared to what he has done. There just isn't much you can say of what happened here, of what this man has admitted to, of what he has placed upon society, and what society has to a great extent allowed to occur. I hope when we leave this courtroom today that I have to the best of my ability provided this man shall never walk the streets of America or any other place as a free man. Judge Moody sentenced Robert Hansen to 461 years plus life. He began his sentence at the Lewisburg Federal Correctional Facility in Pennsylvania. April 23, 1984. The police went about the unpleasant business of digging up victims and other items of crucial evidence at spots where Robert Hansen told officers he had buried victims and their belongings. At the Knik River Bridge, a suitcase and purse were found at a site named as Grave Number 6. Within the purse, an identification document revealed that it had been the property of one Tamara Peterson. The next day, the first body was found at grave site number 2. A thoroughly decomposed body was unearthed. It had deteriorated to bones, some limited flesh, hair, and sections of clothing. Investigators were careful with the remains, as they had deteriorated to such a degree that they would have fallen apart if they had been handled in a cavalier fashion. A mile and a half to the west, another body was found. It had been wrapped in a plastic bag. This was interpreted as meaning that the victim was murdered elsewhere, and her body was only disposed of at the wooded site. Investigators were unable to tell whether or not it was nude because of the advanced degree of decomposition. Indeed, some of the bodies have been buried for at least 2 years. A journalist observed as the detectives probed the site for bodies. She struggled to remain upwind of the pervasive stench of decomposing flesh. For the uninitiated, this was a Maalox moment, and he was sure to remain in perpetuity for days. Near Horseshoe Lake, Hansen had marked grave number 9. Almost 50 feet from the flag, a body was lying in the prone position. The body had been stripped of almost all its flesh by animal predation. The mandible was intact. The detectives hoped that dental records would identify this victim. 2 other victims were analyzed during autopsies, but remained unidentified. April 26th. A body was found at gravesite number 11. Hansen said he'd left the body above ground. The body had been stripped of most of its flesh. The jawbone resided on the ground nearby. Dental records would provide the only possible way to identify this victim. Gravesite number 13 was located near Scenic Lake. There they found a rib and a torn red blouse. Comparing the jawbone to dental records yielded a match for that of Angela Feddern. She had been a stripper and prostitute. April 29th. Off-duty police officer Al Moreau found a body while walking along the banks of the Knik River. He spotted a knee bone and a section of denim sticking out of the sand. Moreau said, "I figured it was a body. It was probably the worst smell I had ever smelled in my life. When state troopers showed up to examine the site and dig for more remains, Moreau volunteered to help. Of this, he said, "All night I kept seeing the same thing, picking up the legs and putting her in the body bag. She was cold, real cold." It was confirmed as the body of Tamara Peterson. At a gravel pit on the northwest side of the old Knik River Bridge, a body was dug up. It was assumed to be that of Lisa Futrell. In the middle of May, a weathered paper bag was found that contained the following items: a blood-stained woman's dress jacket, blood-stained Levi's, shoes, nylons, a buck hunting knife, a purse containing makeup, lipstick, a Bic lighter, a spoon, and a hypodermic syringe. By the end of summer '84, the following represented the victims that were identified: Sherry Morrow, found September 12, 1982. Paula Golding, found September 2nd, 1983. Sue Luna, found April 24th, 1984. Malai Larson, found April 24th, 1984. Delynn Fry, found April 25th, 1984. Angela Feddern, found April 26, 1984. Teresa Watson, found April 26, 1984. Tamara Peterson, found April 29, 1984. Lisa Futrell, found May 9, 1984. Thank you for listening to Human Monsters. Bye for now.